I'm Jenna Harmon, now Jenna Sandlund, and I earned a Bachelor's of Arts here at IPFW in psychology. And currently I have my school psychology degree, which is an education specialist degree from the University of Dayton. And I will be working in a small suburban school district right outside the Dayton, Ohio area as a full-time school psychologist. Throughout life, I've always been interested in how people think, how they act, how they feel, human behavior. And so once I got into college, I took intro psychology, and then I took developmental psychology with Dr. Michelle Druin. And after those two courses, I knew that psychology was for me because, like I said, I was always interested in how people think, act, and feel, and I'm also interested in human development and behavior. And just with those things coupled together, I knew that I wanted to pursue psych. I think just some misconceptions, maybe even from students, maybe not necessarily psychology students or just people out in the community, is when you tell them you're studying psychology, they think that you're analyzing them or you can see inside what they're thinking and those kinds of things. I think that was a little bit of a surprise to me and what other people's conception of what I was studying was really about, or they think you're going to counsel them or do therapy. In all actuality, in undergrad, it was more just learning and starting to develop your skills in some of those areas and learning theory. And now that I'm a school psychologist, a lot of times people think I'm a school counselor and they kind of put me in a box where I counsel people, when in all actuality I don't really counsel very often. More of my job is consultation, evaluations, and helping implement the response to intervention in schools. Some of the things that I did outside the classroom was I started out being a research assistant, and then I also was a teaching assistant. I did a practicum course at Parkview Behavioral Health, which was a great experience to get into the actual psychiatric hospital and see patients. I also did volunteer at Big Brothers Big Sisters in the First Friends program as a volunteer experience and working in the inner city. And then I participated in a field experience, which I also received credit for at Park Center, and I worked in their adolescent day treatment facility a couple times a week. Those were all things that were options, and I would highly recommend because it gave me it gave me lots of different experiences, some in research, some in teaching, which helped develop interpersonal skills, relationships, those kinds of things, and then things that were more practical for the field, which were more hands-on, which I did at the psychiatric hospital and then Park Center, the adolescent day treatment center. I think the first thing I did, I took the initiative to be part of Dr. Druin's lab doing research. That was huge. I knew I wanted to go to graduate school, and because I knew that, I knew I needed to get involved in a lab. And at first it was just, I know I need to get involved, I know I need to put this on my CV. It's going to look good to get into graduate school. Graduate school is very competitive for psychology. And so I started that, but then it became more. It wasn't just now to get credit hours and to put it on my CV, but I started building relationships with people within the lab. I started building a relationship with Dr. Druin and just the staff I was working with in the preschools and all of those things, and it really provided a rich experience. And so that really kicked it off because I worked for her for about 2 years. And then being a teaching assistant also, I was a teaching assistant, I believe, for 3 courses of intro. So that also was a lot, but it was very beneficial. My experience working at Park Center and then the volunteer experience at Big Brothers Big Sisters, all of the presentations was very valuable. Once I got to graduate school as well, those were all things that not only prepare you for your career past undergrad or past graduate school, but they also prepare you for graduate school and helping you get into graduate school. So I think all of those things combined was huge. And Dr. Michelle Druin, she was the primary professor. I did research under, and I studied developmental psychology and emergent literacy in preschool children. And through that experience, I started out working with her and testing students preschoolers specifically on emergent literacy skills, and then I started taking more of a responsibility in the lab, and that just kept expanding throughout my years here at IPFW, and I developed some of my own research based off of her research. I presented at MPA twice. I went to Sigma Xi in Washington, D.C. and presented research. And then I also presented here at IPFW at the symposium, some of the research based off of the research I was doing with her. And then as a teaching assistant, I worked with Dr. Vartanian, and she's just very good with her interactions with her students, so I learned a lot from just observing her, but then also being able to utilize those skills in multiple forms, both online and face-to-face, because I worked with her in online classes as well as a face-to-face class, and developed some skills in presenting in front of the students a couple different chapters in the book and for lecture. It was, I mean, they're hands down the best professors I've had, and I feel very blessed and thankful to have. They guided me through undergrad and even into grad school. They were very influential throughout that process, and just not really knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to grad school, and at the time, I knew I had a lot of experience. I didn't have the best GRE score, and I thought I wanted to do clinical, but just based on my experience, based on what I wanted to do, and kind of doing an analysis, if you will, of the things that I've done and how my skills would best apply, it seemed like school psychology was the best fit based on all of my experiences, based on what I wanted to do, and so they really guided that process. And right out of undergrad, I decided to take some time off because I was still processing what would be the best decision in regards to graduate school. So I was a live-in nanny and saved money, and then I pursued graduate work after that. If you're pursuing a psychology degree, I think if you actually want to practice it and do some kind of psychology within the field, then it's important to go into it with the mindset that you probably will need to pursue further education in some aspect to actually practice your skills. Because in undergrad, you're doing a lot of theory, and with the additional experiences I had, research, teaching, volunteer work, that allowed me to do some practice, but not until you really get to graduate school do you get the real hands-on kind of practice and beyond. And so in order to get to that point, it's really important to prepare. And so the first thing I would do is start kind of researching what is it that you would like to do outside of psychology, and is psychology really what you want to pursue, or do you want to pursue something else? But if you're really interested in pursuing psychology, the first thing would be to get involved in a lab, being a research assistant, teaching assistant, doing volunteer work, getting that hands-on experience. That will be beneficial to see if that's really what you enjoy, as well as getting into graduate school. It's almost imperative to have those experiences, not just a 4.0. They really look for experience in that. So, and you have to start doing that your sophomore year in order to build that up. Starting your senior year, if you want to go to graduate school, you're already applying to graduate school as your senior year in order to get in the following year. So you need to have things in place by your junior year that you can put on your CV to demonstrate that you want to pursue graduate work in the field of psychology or some aspect of psychology.